everyone, and welcome to the Town of Lewisboro Town Board meeting of November 12th, 2024. For those in the room, the exits there's one towards the front of the building, one's towards the rear of the building. And if you can, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with public comment number one. Anyone here would like to get up and speak? We need your name, hamlet, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Jean Lewis. Paul and I have lived on Lake Ascalita. Thank you. I'm Jean Lewis. Paul and I have lived on Lake Ascalita since 1965. We've been actively involved in the Three Lakes Council's stewardship efforts ever since it was formed in 1970. In 2002, the Three Lakes Council hired a certified limnologist to study our lakes and develop a lake management plan. His report informed us phosphorus is a key contributor to eutrophication, and septic effluent is a contributor of that phosphorus. Our newsletter proclaimed, "The enemy is us, phos for us." The good news in the report was that some of the phosphorus load that we are contributing is controllable, meaning humans put it there, and we humans should take steps to turn back the tide. Science and engineering have now united and designed a way to turn back the tide by carrying septic tank effluent away from the lakes to a sewage treatment plant. A sewage district that includes the Three Lakes and Lake Truesdale is now proposed. On behalf of the town, you took an important step by applying for grants to fund the development of a sewage treatment system. The exciting news is that your grant application has just been approved. The stipulation is that you must approve acceptance of the grant by November 15th, which is just 3 days from now. So we urge you to vote for grant acceptance tonight so the sewer district plans can further be developed and constructed. This project is not just a benefit for the lakes, it will also help drinking water aquifer for all residents down. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak?
My name is Nan Dale, and you asked for a plot number or something. I didn't get that.
Yeah, sure. Your name and hamlet. No.
But I don't know my hamlet. I didn't even know I had a hamlet. I'm a new member of the Three Lakes Council Board of Directors and a longstanding resident on Lake Wacabuck for about 25 years. I really just want to reiterate what Jean just said to you. Over the last 25 years, I've sat on my dock watching the lake disintegrate and deteriorate. And it's an urgent matter, as I think you know. There are days that nobody would drink water, even with the best filter system in America, from that lake, where you can't let your dog go into the lake because the water is so toxic. So we have done a great deal in trying to improve our septic systems. I was co-chaired a group and trying to get everybody to pump much more regularly. And people have really stepped up and done that, but we need a modern sewer treatment plant. We hope that you'll approve it, and thank you for all the help that you've given us to this point. It's been terrific. It's been a great partnership. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I only have notes. I'm Sue Enos. I live in South Salem, and my family moved here right after World War II. So I have lived in South Salem for a very long time. I won't tell you how long. Not back to the 20s and 30s when all of the small houses were built around the lakes here. But in any case, I've lived in South Salem. I love South Salem. I've watched it grow, and I now am very involved in trying to protect what we have. And I was part of the comprehensive plan as one of the team managers, and very interested that there was such a focus on preserving what we have, not only open spaces and open lands, but also water resources, and really realizing how important it is that we pay attention. The houses were built in the 20s, -1. It's on less than a quarter of an acre. It's typical. We don't even have a septic system. There isn't room for one. I have holding tanks. They're new. I pump them every 2 years. But the soil is depleted, the slopes, all of them. This applies to most of the houses on all of the lakes because we're all in bowls because it was glacial. So water comes down. The contaminants are not just phosphorus and nitrogen, which disturb the lake, but we have all sorts of other chemical pollutants, bacterial pollutants. I mean, I'm sure that you all know. So I think that while we're interested in preserving the lakes, it really is a much bigger thing than that. And it's something I think the whole town needs to think about, which is there's some big properties here. They have wonderful septic systems. They probably don't need to do anything except maintain them and keep them up. But for those of us who are smaller, I was thinking about condos, and you would never put a septic system in a condo community, or even some of them, you just wouldn't do it. And we're not that dissimilar because the properties are so small. So what do you do with clusters of houses with properties where soil is depleted, the runoff is vast, and it's going not only in the lake, but Truesdale and Walkabuck and the 3 lakes go right into the Walkabuck River and right into the aquifer on 35. Is that protected? I'm not sure what the status is. But in any case, so it's a lake issue. That's how we got started. We've learned a lot. And I really ask you to support this. It's so important. We've had great support from the state. Thank you, Tony. You have really made it all happen for us and put it together. And very exciting. We have pieces. This was one grant. We have several other pieces in place. We're waiting for one more. And we're all very excited about it and hope we have your support. Thanks.
Your time. Anyone else would like to speak?
Jonathan Peter from South Salem, and as president of South Shore Walkabuck Association, I can say that it's very difficult to get homeowners in an association to agree on anything, but the proposal for a communal septic system has had nearly unanimous support in our association. It's something that we're really looking forward to, and we appreciate all your support from the town. So we're looking forward to it. That's all.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm Nicholas. I know I didn't forget. Thanks. For those that don't know me, Nicholas Lungwajensky. I'm in Lewisboro hamlet. And I do think we should have a map up so people that don't know their hamlets, you know, our communities, we're not just one community, we're communities. And so I think people need to know what our local affiliations are. It's great, you know, some of the associations people know naturally, but Lewisboro hamlet, people still think we're somewhere in South Salem Vista, and there's people are confused about that. I just, on the issue of the water quality, you know, I support all my fellow neighbors that spoke on that. I served as the Commodore of the Long Island City Community Boathouse in New York City. Our efforts were to try to change the paradigm of our water resources. They are treasures to be protected. They are treasures to be that benefit the entire community. And water is something that links us all. My well goes down, these aquifers drain towards Norwalk. So anything that's affecting the water in those in your communities, in your waterfront, is going to affect us all. And we're having a lot of concerns, I know, towards Oak Ridge about our water quality, not just in the district the town is responsible for, but also those of us that put our straw down and draw up and give it to our young children. So water quality is something I think we need to all come together for. And one other thing I wanted to say, as the Commodore of the boathouse, and it was a nonprofit organization, we also had a mission to create access. And I know our former supervisor, Peter Parsons, spoke that maybe this is also part of a conversation to have access. I'm in Lewisboro hamlet. I don't have any water access. When I raised this issue on social media, I got access to it. We got testing on New York City waterfronts, and tell you the truth, after I went a couple of times, I didn't want to go on that water because the quality was so terrible. So I thank the person for their invitation. But I think if we had public access to everyone in every hamlet, it would raise the issue. I know NIMBY being what it is, people, what, I pay this, I don't want anybody in. But it doesn't mean you're just going to have some like John Candy going on vacation with the, everything. You regulate it, you get the access, you permit it, and it's controlled. And it's appropriate that everyone is a good neighbor that's using that water resource. If we're talking about the benefits of it, we talk about not only how it affects our health, but also how it's a resource that many of us feel completely locked out from. And public access to something that is now a public focus, I think is a good, and I echo, as Peter Parsons said, that maybe this is something that we consider. And he spoke, I forget which meeting it was, but it was when the comprehensive plan was coming back. It was that meeting, and I was surprised to hear him say it, and it got me thinking. And I think it's another facet to this. If all of us see that water quality, we can all get behind it and back it up, and it can be a great universal for us. Thank you so much.
Anybody else would like to speak? How about on Zoom, Jen?
Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Okay, I want to kind of bring the discussion back to budget, which is under old business tonight. I've had a chance to go through it. Thank you, Janet, for getting me a copy. I do have some points I want to bring out. Perhaps somebody on the board could take notes and answer these questions either later at a future meeting. The first item is facility rental. We're currently, for next year, running about $104,000 for rental for LES for substandard spaces. We need to get out of there, I think, sooner rather than later. We need to get our police back into their old facility or expanded facility. We need to get our other departments back to hopefully wherever they were before or another area. I'd also like to know if the state police pay any rent to us for using that facility on the corner of Spring Street and 35. I did not see that anywhere in the budget. The second item is there is a revenue line in the beginning of the budget for $20,000 for sponsorship money that we're expecting. There's also a line item later in the budget under Parks and Rec for $30,000 for fireworks. I don't know if that sponsorship money is a part of that cost. Are our fireworks $50,000? Are they $30,000? If they're $30,000 and the sponsorship donations go towards that, then we probably should be lowering the line item for fireworks later on in the budget. Another item under finance is there's two line items for account clerks. One line item goes from $11,000 for this year to $54,000. That's almost a 400% increase. So I'm curious as to why we're going from $11,000 to $54,000. That's under finance. Under assessment, there's a line item for extra hours going from $3,000 for this year to an expected $26,000 for 2025. That's an 800% increase for that line item. Also under shared services, cleaning is going from $22,000 this year to $68,000 next year, another over 300% increase. And lastly, for the budget questions, under building and safety inspection, we have a line item for clerical, which was $30,000 for this year, going up to almost $51,000 for next year. So that's my first line of questions. My second is I'd love for the board to further explain the resolution authorizing the town to provide matching in-kind funds or contributions to the cost of her senior van. I don't really understand what that means. There was no attached documentation. I thought we were looking for a grant for that. And finally, there is an item under new business that I just want to bring up now because it looks like you're looking to approve it, which is the purchase of
Barbara, I'm sorry, if you could maybe bring that up in the second comment period.
Well, if they're going to vote on, if they're going to vote on it, I just want to say that the two items looking to be purchased come to a total of $70,000, and the money we have coming in from some kind of energy grant is only 50. So I was just wondering where the other 20 was coming from. Thank you. Sorry to go over.
Thank you, Barbara. Simone O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute.
Good evening. No one loves talking about water more than me. And I love that the lakes are getting things done. But I'm still at Oak Ridge. I went by today, Tony, and no one was working, just FYI. Don't know if there's another snafu. I just want to say I read the Villas at Vista portion and the reports that follow. And it states that they're going to move forward with it, which is fine. But I didn't see anything in the agenda that it's not going, it just states it's not going to disrupt the wetlands. And I don't know how that could be possible, being that the pond is right by where they're building. Also that there is wildlife there, Canadian geese, which are protected by law. In fact, if you kill a Canadian goose, surprisingly, you go to jail for up to 6 months. I don't know if you know that. So I'm interested in knowing how you're addressing that. I'm also interested in knowing if you are going to declare the water potable tonight, and if that's even legal or puts us in any kind of legal risk, because I was under the impression that had to be done by a professional. The EPA sets the standards for water, and I'm a little concerned about that. The other thing that I want to state is if the building starts and there's a wetland exclusion, how does that work? What happens to that pond? How is that protected? I'm going to listen to public comment to the new business, and I'll speak on that. I don't want to belabor it until I hear your points. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
I was gonna say, just a point to Barbara and all her questions. Ideally, Barbara, if you can list those questions, send it to us via email. We can certainly address, and there's an explanation for everything that you mentioned. So please do send us an email on that. Okay, so we're gonna go to communication. So I have a couple of items. One of which is we received a grant in the value of $950 from PERMA. PERMA is the Public Employees. Let's see if they have that definition here. It has to do with our insurance, our risk management, and liability insurance. And this is a grant that is going to, through PERMA, we do all the employee trainings on everything from related to be an employee, sexual harassment, any other issues related to working in an environment with multiple people, and how to basically work under the rules of the insurance company and the state. So through this, there are online learnings and also in-person sessions that we have. And my chief of staff, Kerry, has been managing all that. And in addition, we had an opportunity to apply for a grant, which will give us a large screen TV and a laptop so that we can use for these online classes. So for example, with the highway department, we do classes with them. And there's a whole list, and I can't name them all, but there's a whole list of courses that we're responsible for taking. And so with this grant, we will be receiving a large screen TV and a laptop that will actually be mounted. I think it's going to highway. That's where we have the largest group of employees. And so I'd like to thank Kerry for working on this grant and for making it happen. Thank you very much. And then and Kerry's back there. The other grant, and some people spoke about this, so we have a couple of folks that are here that are on the Lakes Coalition. And so they were aware of this, that came in on Friday of last week. And this is a grant that we had applied for through the New York State EFC, the Environmental Facilities Corp. We didn't get it last year, so we applied for it again this year. And they actually awarded us with more money than we expected, which is good. And that relates to the, without getting into the nuts and bolts of it, there are other grants that we are getting, other monies. And we went back and forth with EFC on what.
That we're getting or that we're applying for?
We've been awarded.
Yes, so let me finish. So we actually had applied for, under the assumption that these other grant, there was one other grant, it's not really a grant, it's a legal obligation. EFC considered that a grant so that they deducted that from the amount that they, from the calculation that they used to come up with the grant amount that we were going to potentially be awarded. So they agreed that contractual obligation is not a grant. Originally they thought it was, so that increased our request, which originally was $3.5 million to $6.875 million. And that's for the potential sewer district. So what we're waiting for now is a New York State DEC grant, which is another $10 million. So we're hoping to find out the result of that application soon. But everything else has been, we have the county funds, we have the DEC and DEP contractual obligation, those funds as well. And the county approved funding for the map planning report for both the sewer district and the potential septic maintenance district, which the one for the septic maintenance district is on the agenda for approval by the board. So this is the letter from EFC. It'll be included in the minutes, but just to paraphrase some of it here. The governor is pleased to inform us that the community has been awarded New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Grant, also called WIA, WIIA, awarded an amount not to exceed $6,875,000 based on information provided in your application. So we have to now confirm our acceptance of the grant award and our intent to proceed with the project by completing and signing the enclosed form, and that's on the agenda as well for the board to vote on approving submission of this form and signing by me. The grant agreement, we must enter into a project finance agreement or grant agreement for this project by September 30th of 2026. So we have until 2026 to ultimately, there's still steps involved that we have to go through. We have to go through the, creating the map plan and report, and then the district formation, right? So there's a whole process that we still need to go through, but this gives us a large window of opportunity to get that work done. So I want to thank New York State EFC for that. Nice surprise.
To explain how much money we were actually given and how much, I know you said we're still waiting here on 10 million, but how much do we have we been granted and or given so far?
Right, so we had the estimated total sewer project cost is $40 million. The DEC grant that we're waiting on is $10 million. We have this DEP funding, which is $16 million. This is the funding that was projected to be $16 million. That's the contractual obligation between DEC and DEP, where they're awarding a portion for each of the three lakes, Kitchewan, Truesdale, and Wakaba. The Kitchewan portion is enough to pay for that septic maintenance district. DEP are actually, I was on the phone with them this morning together with the health department. They're actually working on an amendment to the existing agreement that'll provide the mechanism for distribution of those funds. So we're waiting on that piece, but the monies have been granted already to Lewisboro. So with that, we also had a request to Westchester County for $10.5 million. They basically awarded, we had a meeting back in August, September timeframe. I think it was September timeframe, where the Northern Westchester Watershed Coalition, which I'm part of, we met with the Westchester County folks, including DEP and DEC and DOH, Westchester County Planning. There was somebody from the county executive's office. There was our county legislator was there. And they actually increased, Westchester had been, or Lewisboro had been allocated $1 million some years back. A portion of that went towards the salt dome. So we had some more money left in there for water projects and clean water projects. They increased that amount to 12 million. So that's the remainder that we needed, and part of that is going to pay for the map plan and report for both districts, for the sewer and the septic maintenance district.
Tony, forgive
So-
me, you lost me
Okay,
in all of that. You said they're estimating it's gonna cost $40 million for
right.
this project. So my question was, how much do we know that we have so far and how much is remaining?
We have
You kind
yeah.
of went off in tangents in the explanations and I, maybe I'm the only one that got lost in all
Okay.
the tangents. But how much is it gonna cost? How much do we know has been given, granted, contractually? or
So
otherwise?
out of the
How much
40
is that?
million, 10 million are missing.
Thank
And
you.
potentially less because we got more than we expected from EFC, and we're potentially going to get more from this DEC, DEP contractual obligation.
Just wanted the
Yeah.
Reader's Digest version,
That's
so
it. Yeah.
that's,
Okay.
I think
Sorry for
bottom
getting into the
line.
nuts and bolts, but I figured,
I know
yeah.
you get excited
Okay.
about the nuts and bolts, but I think we just want to know how much more money is
Right.
left.
so that's the only other piece of communications I have that came into us.
Just on assuming other sources of funding come through, then we have to see if the district's gonna be created, so a district's
That's
gonna be
correct.
created. And we also have the issue about owning the parcel where any treatment plant would be constructed, right?
Correct.
And
We
don't
own the
that,
parcel,
Which.
right?
We own a proposed parcel.
Proposed parcel, yes.
Well, so the proposed parcel on what we have now is what? Behind here?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's the only possible site?
That's correct.
It's not the only possible site, it's the only one we're considering present.
So we can get into the details of that, but right now that's the only possible site. If there are others, sure, we could take a look.
Well,
at
it's,
it.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just something that people should be aware of that, I appreciate and applaud all this work to get all this
Yeah.
funding, but eventually something's got to be built and people should know where it's intended to be built. Make sure that this public.
Yeah, actually, we had a great meeting with the the sewer maintenance district. And anyone else that wanted to come, you guys received the invitation as well. So we actually had a map depicting where it was going to be located and actually how it could potentially look, right, in terms of the physical building. So yeah, that's.
Maybe we should get that, make sure
folks.
like the Truesdale Association has all that information. It's
Absolutely, they are part of this.
that's been distributed to everybody in the community.
It has.
Okay, so that's it for communications. So let me move on here. The consent agenda, which includes approval of the October 28, 2024 minutes and the monthly reports for the building department and the police department. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Discussion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so old business. So we have the 2025 budget. So we have a tentative budget that's out there. We've been making some adjustments. The next step is to come to a preliminary budget. And what I did was I distributed to the board some of the changes. And one of the things, and we're not going to go into budget line or line items at this point here tonight. But the summary that I provided to the board shows how we can potentially, and I can put this up on the screen share so folks can see, to show how we could potentially, and working with Annie, our controller, who's here tonight, how we can potentially get close to the, hold on a second. Actually, Sean, it's saying that I don't have share capability. I just sent the request. Do you get that or does Joel get that?
He'll do it now.
Okay. So let me just put this up here. So basically, when we left with the tentative budget, we had the proposed tax increase with the current numbers that we have in here, including the increased budget for paving. Oh, yeah, that's
Back there.
Sean, can we put it up here? We had approximately 14%.
We were 16.
Yes, I believe this one, right.
We're at 16, I thought. 16.
We're 16 and change, yeah,
16.42.
okay.
Thank you, Sean.
So what we did to get, and I'll show folks here, so our tax cap is 2.49%. That's equivalent to the New York State, what they call the 2% tax cap. So if you go above that, you're above the New York State tax cap. What we did to get to that tax cap is in reviewing our finances together with Annie Burnham, our controller. One of the options that we could do is include surplus amount, which we haven't done for as long as I've been on the town board. We've never done this. Surrounding municipalities have. So if you have extra money, because your finances are great, you can actually use that to offset some of your budget expenses and of course mitigate the tax increase. So what Annie, after doing some research, she determined that we have from 2022 to 2024, that's on the screen here. Wait a minute, is that? Oh, there it goes. To get us down to, with the existing numbers that we have in the budget, to get us down to the tax cap, we would need to have a surplus applied here of $821,000, which will have to be divided between the general fund and the highway fund. So we haven't done that yet, but we will, depending on the amount that the board agrees to include in there as surplus. But of that 821, 543,000 is from interest that we've earned since 2022 to 2024. And I'll have to thank our, prior controllers for doing a great job in putting money aside in high interest earning accounts. So, and the balance of that comes from the general fund, right? Which is basically whatever revenues minus your expenses is what's accumulated in our balance, our fund balance. So that's how we came up with this number. And this was just to show the board if we went through this exercise, there's a way that we can mitigate the tax increase by applying surplus money that we have access to. And maybe Ed, if you come up in case, the board has any questions or you can add some more to that.
Yeah, actually, I spoke to Annie today, which helped to explain things. I can maybe give my understanding from a layperson's, non-accountant, non-budget person point of view, and you can correct me. I don't see if it's my quiz, my pop quiz on this, but so the 16% increase that we were left at is basically $1 million or so above the tax cap. So in other words, we have to come up with reduce by $1 million to get to the tax cap, give or take. So the proposal, which is being discussed, is taking that 820 that closes that gap, and the surplus, which I was trying to understand, it's basically talked about interest, but over a period of years, including conservative fiscal projections by people like by Leo, the town's budgets were conservative, referable to expenditures, as well as being conservative, referable to projected revenues, both. So as a result of that, and also by, I think, the contingency aspect, which Supervisor Parsons put in. So those three factors allowed us over time to build back up our balance and become more financially healthy from basically dating back probably to 2008 in the recession. So as a result of that, we currently have a fund balance of about over $6 million now. So what that means is, and that fluctuates over the course of the year based upon the town's need to meet its obligations. So as I understand from before, even based upon the low part of the year, we have more things to pay out. It'll still be approximately half that figure, or $3 million. So this gives us the opportunity, and I also spoke to Annie about speaking to our town's accountant to make sure we get their blessing that we're doing something in the most fiscally responsible and prudent way. safe way to make sure that in doing that, we continue to maintain our, long-term financial stability and also potentially gives us an opportunity to plan for other things, the opportunity to say something, even looking at, say, the police station after we get the capital fund expenditure. So, but we had that opportunity because things like over COVID, the plus side is that things like the mortgage tax increased when the housing market was crazy. So that was an opportunity where revenues coming into the community were significantly larger than they were. Now we're going the other way as far as the market. So all those positive factors in long-term planning are potentially giving us this opportunity to do things in a different way.
Correct.
Ms. Brenner, would you like to add anything from your professional?
My professional opinion. So I know it sounds like it's the first time Lewisboro has ever attempted tackling their budget in this way, but I can tell you a lot of neighboring towns do it this way. Most do. Most auditors would recommend a certain amount of a fund balance, which Lewisboro's is much higher right now. So you have more than enough room. Percentage wise, yeah. So
the state controller wants like at least 15%, I think it is, right?
that's probably high for what it is now. I think my most recent one I've read was 2 months of operating revenues and expenses in a fund balance.
Okay, so 2 months, that's even higher than.
That's like, well, if I took that over 12 months, if I actually conservatively went 20%, even $3 million would be
Okay.
healthy. But again, I have a question out to the auditors on that to get their wording and their comparison with other towns in our same situation to make sure it's what they recommend. Because I got the fund balance and the surpluses that have been created just over the past 2 years from the audited financials on the website, which anybody can look up on the comptroller's page. So it's there. You just look up the surplus from 23 and 22, and they're really significant. And that's what.
So how much over the recommended levels?
That's what I'm gonna get some, so most towns have a fund balance policy that either picks a certain amount of time of your operating expenses and revenues or a percentage. So I would like to, well, I have not seen an actual audit here yet. So once PKF is coming in for preliminaries in the next month. So I did put that question out there to them to see if I could speak to them before they come in, because this was just the first way I learned about the town's finances coming into the budget season and my new position, which I have to say, coming into it in this position is really nice. So I thank the previous financial comptrollers and Leo and everybody.
10 years ago, it would have been a different story.
Yeah, I did hear that as well.
Yeah, and if you get too high, then policy should say you want to start working that off.
That's right.
Be sitting on those funds.
That's right.
But we, working with Annie, we took a look at the revenue side as well. So we bumped up the revenue by something beeping.
I know.
It's beeping.
I don't know if
Could
it's,
it be the
thermostat?
Yeah, really? It's probably the alarm, smoke alarm.
I guess we need to change batteries.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Just like at home.
so some of the adjustments, just to, one of the large adjustments here is we bumped up the interest income by $400,000. Which will give us, gives us a nice increase in revenue that can only help us. And
But it's an accurate representation. It's not pie in the sky approach. It's a realistic number.
Correct.
It's been historically
Okay.
budgeted very low.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
now with the move with this cash on hand into a higher yield account,
Yeah.
it's just earning its own
More
interest.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been doing very well with the high interest bearing account that we have. We just need to move more money over there
Mhm.
than we have in the past.
Now that you know you have it.
Now that we know that we have it, exactly.
What's our restriction as far as where we can put money as a government?
So I have a call out to our Chase representative, Ed, to ask him about opening up a money market within Chase, which might match the rate that we're getting at the outside. And that's another question I have to him, is where our limits are. But right now, all of the cash is essentially with Chase. And one small part of it is in an outside account. That is a high interest yield banking account, which was open before my time.
So we have to be in bank basically as far as options, right?
I believe so.
Money market account, you can't go to stock market. obviously,
No.
But
No, I'm just
There's-
by
there's
contrast, we
rules
can't put it in,
against that.
right, we
So-
can't put it in a no load
No.
index fund, which we would tell
I
with.
think it has to be the FDIC.
FDIC insured and.
Yeah, so it even requires that you split it up if we have enough, right?
Right.
Because FDIC limits.
Yes.
It wouldn't be covered.
Right.
So that's where we are here.
Mhm.
I don't know if anyone has any other questions for Annie.
So what's our next step in the process or in the budget process, how we're gonna proceed?
Well, I think what I like to do is the next step is, if you guys have any specific questions on any line items, we'll talk to the department heads about those and make the adjustments before I think the dates that we have is we have to adopt a preliminary either on 12/9 or 12/16.
No, it's the shaking of the head.
I'm sorry, 12/20 is the deadline.
For the final,
For
The
the,
final budget.
public hearing deadline is the 10th.
Of
But
the
you should adopt the preliminary tonight, set the public hearing and publish. the
actually, I have in
salaries.
my notes adopt the preliminary on 11/25, which is in 2 weeks.
So we are on the 9th. Need
And then we
5
have a
days
meeting
to
on
make it.
the 9th.
Okay, then you can do it on,
Yeah,
I just worry about the publication dates from when you actually do it.
Right.
It's maybe need 5 days.
so if we adopt the preliminary on 11/25, that should give us enough time.
So what's the process you're outlining if we have issues with particular components?
Yeah, so over the next 2 weeks, get together with department heads. I'm gonna have some further discussions as well. And clarify some points that I still have to clarify.
I gave you some feedback.
Yeah, Sandra gave me some feedback, so we'll have a discussion on those.
So, but how are all the whole board members gonna be knowing,
Well, it's gonna be in the
What is the process?
preliminary budget, which is then up for public hearing, but you'll know beforehand. Right, just like I summarized the changes that I did up until through last week.
right, but that's
Thursday.
based upon individual, I'm trying to, we're not addressing specific things before, the adoption of the next stage here. So like, how do we discuss it? Like as far as, departments for particular expenditures.
Well,
Wants to know, when do we get to all discuss it together, since it has to be in a public setting and not one-off, conversations with feedback directly?
Right,
from
Doug
you?
Council's question.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
well, if we adopt on the 25th, the preliminary. Could we adopt it on the 9th? December 9th? No,
No,
because we need to,
Public hearing on the preliminary, you need 5 days notice on that before you adopt the final.
right,
Just as an
Would you
example,
like to
so.
sit down? Just one more thing, while you're talking about the preliminary, so the more you chip away at the budget, and if you add revenue or take away expenses, that amount that you're going into the surplus is gonna change, it should essentially go down. Depending on the changes you make in the budget, assuming you're
right,
taking expenses down or raising revenue. That number's going to change, it can change,
right.
It will reflect.
it will
The
reflect,
changes that we made.
correct. So that cover sheet that Tony started with will change depending on how the ending preliminary budget comes out.
It's all connected.
That's right.
Yeah.
So like, for example, so I had questions of Cindy when she gave her presentation
Right.
to the library. And then I followed up with a letter and I got a comprehensive response back from the board. Thank you. So so I have some follow-up questions on that. So I don't know what the vehicle is to address that, because what we still have in that, so we still have, like, for example, in that department, the proposed was reduced from 14.17 to 12.66, I think, if I could read my handwriting. So it's still close to a $70,000 proposed increase year over year for the library subsidy in the town budget. So I don't know how you want to put it.
Yeah, and I did not reflect that on here yet. We received that.
Well, I think you
revised
did. You
budget
sent something out about actually.
Yeah, that I was-
Something out at 4/13.
That it will be
today about-
reflected in the preliminary, but I haven't yet.
Okay.
Right,
So that was from the 14 to 12.
right.
So then just so our neighbors at home and participating in person with us understand that when we adopt the preliminary budget tonight, that's just the pre-budget. And then we have the public hearing and everybody gives their input. And
Not-
then,
But we're not adopting tonight.
25th.
So just if I could insert something, the 25th That means I would send it in on Tuesday. I have to get it in by my public notice Tuesday by 10 a.m. I don't have the delay in publication because of the Thanksgiving holiday yet.
Right.
So chances are it may not go in until Saturday, the 30th, which should be fine. Yeah. So just
Okay.
insert that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're just, again, the whole thing, which was, was raised a couple of days ago. As far as if we're gonna do this referable to applying the surplus, because then that calibrates our, what our options are and what we need to do and can do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, so. I'm trying to, that's why I'm asking for guidance, how to approach the process. Are we going into the next stage where we have a 16% proposed tax increase, or we're at the budget cap?
Right.
It's a big, it's a wide berth and differential.
Right. Well, that's why I want to present this. I mean, this is new, right? This is what we just determined is a tool that we have, not a tool, but a way that we have available to us because our finances are doing great to mitigate any tax increase above the cap.
It's a
So-
legal process we can follow to
Financial
minimize the tax burden of our community.
Right, but it also affects how we approach the balance of the process and what we need to do.
Right.
Because our goal is to get to the cap.
Right.
Or
Not-
below the cap.
Mhm.
And not break everybody's budget.
Right. We could, I mean, if you want to have another work session where we all, review, after we garner some additional input.
Well, let me
questions that you may have?
make it very tangible and specific. I think that the proposed library budget increase of 12.6% should be adjusted. That's what I think. But
Okay.
however, how much depends upon where we are as far as the balance. Because if it depends, how much we have to rely on other components. And if that frees up things, then we can take a look at where we are for things like paving.
Well,
We can take a look at where we are for things like the police department
So what was-
and investing in a potential.
Well, that's,
potential,
yeah,
police station.
investing in infrastructure, that has nothing to do here with the budget specifically.
This is operating, that's capital.
Yeah, so, but to answer your first question about the impact that the change to the library budget has on this surplus number, I can quickly show that. I mean, what's the, if you want to see that. What was the total change, Cindy? I don't have my calculator.
Is 68,877.90. 68.
Yeah, but I have to take the difference.
688.
In the preliminary budget that's here, the difference was $77,104. There's your number there.
You have the total, the new
Yeah,
total?
so I need to, hold on a second.
Which line?
So you're down by $8,225 and 83 cents.
That sounds right. I mean, I just have the new total.
Yeah,
What's the line?
so let me just do this.
I'm at 874.10.
Okay.
68, 877, so that's a differential.
I'm like 77.04.
That number might say X, whatever, 68 plus whatever equals that. This is where we are now. Plus differences.
Oh, I don't see reduction. 77.104.
Then I got 68, so we can do this like 8-9 dollars. From the initial presentation.
Okay, from 77
To 68.
Right, it's right next to the town historian. Oh, there you found it. You got it. Yeah.
Which,
So instead of that 621,159,
Yeah, I just don't want to change the prior tentative number, so. I'm
gotcha. Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
other,
So by doing that, we're actually now at 2.39% is the rate, keeping that same amount in the, so if I subtract that same amount here rid of this. So the new number for the surplus is 813,708, right? So it reduces that, so you're back at 2.49, which is your tax cap. So that's what that's the impact to changing the library budget. Because you wanted to see what that number was, right?
And that's
No, I
with,
really, no, that wasn't really my point. My point was is where, again, we're going back and looking at what, picking up on what started was the supervisor's budget. And that's where that was our starting, one work session. And now we're introducing a concept which, does a lot of the less need of a scalpel and going back through things. Because we've already talked about broad strokes. We talked about, for example, 3.25 increase across the board, I think, right? It's been factored in, right?
Right, the 3%.
3%.
So it's 3.25.
We started that way when, during the
We-
last 2 weeks, it went down to 3%.
Okay, so, so.
I mean, the point is, we have this, with this, if I took this number back out of here, right? If I just get rid of that. We're at an 11.99% tax rate.
Yeah, no,
Tax
I
increase.
get that. I'm just trying to get an understanding how we're going forward here. That's what our end game is try and get to not breaking the tax cap. That's where we're.
If that's right, if that's what the board, if we want to be at the tax cap, then the only mechanism to do that, aside from any further adjustments in revenue and or expense, is to adjust the surplus.
Precisely.
Right.
That's what I want to know. How much of the puzzle are we
Right.
utilizing by applying the surplus, and how much additional do we have to by addressing
Right, so-
revenue and expense of the proposal?
Right, but what we were just told is the more we reduce our expenses in the budget, the less we have to take in revenue from surplus.
Correct.
So I still say we go in here with a scalpel and find some more stuff to cut, so we take less out of our savings account, as that's the way I look at it.
Right.
And the finance is just trying to simplify. Now, I can't tell Cindy, it's not our job to tell Cindy where she's spending money. Our job is only to say, we're gonna give the library X number of dollars. After that, it's up to Cindy and the board of the library to determine where that money's gonna go. So Cindy very carefully gave us a breakdown of where she thinks her expenses are. If, she's asking for 77,000 and we only give her 50, she's gonna decide where that 50 goes. The town board doesn't just decide, which is something that I've been learning as we've been going along. She made, as far as the library, and I'm concerned, I went through all the expenses. There's some things that the library has no control over. Things go up in expenses, whether it's cleaning supplies, whether it's insurance, whether it's accounting. Those things are not something that there's any control over. However, based on what I know thus far, I don't feel the need, and this is my opinion, and again, it's not up to me to decide what the library board does with the money. But the expended hours, the fundraising assistant, and the increased salaries to fund that comes to a little over $26,000, $27,000. Personally, I don't think it's necessary. I'm using those numbers. But that's just me. I'm thinking if there's some additional money, obviously, there's salaries need to go, there's cost of living increases, there's, the programs that she's asking for, the expanded, online services that we talked about.
Digital content, yes.
So.
I understand all that. So the place that I was thinking, even though I don't get to make that decision, when I look at the numbers, I'm saying at least $28,000 can be cut further.
You don't make the
Okay.
decision, but you can contribute towards the decision making,
Well,
right?
that's
So
what I'm
that's
saying.
where,
That's-
yeah,
that's
then
where I
then
look
we
at
vote
it.
on it.
I'm not, saying,
Yeah.
you know what, you need to spend less in custodial maintenance. The only place that I saw flexibility was there. So I know that even if we say we want to cut it $22,000, it's not necessarily going to affect all these things that she listed
So
as
I
expenses.
went to Cindy and I asked her, go back to the drawing board and come back with a new number, which is what she did.
Yes.
If there's any further cutting that the board would like to see, that needs to be discussed with Cindy. So I think,
Well, that was my
if-
contribution.
Well, let me also say that I was requested on Friday to do that. I don't have a board meeting till tomorrow night, so I have not even discussed all of this. Luckily, I had the board president and the treasurer were willing to meet with me on Veterans Day, which we all three of us did, in order to give you these numbers. So
There's a meeting
was,
tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
yes, the meeting is tomorrow,
Okay.
but I was asked to give information and I wanted to have it for you.
No, that's
I
right.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that,
I just want to, let me finish, please. So that, just want to point that out, that was done very quickly, in good faith. I would like to also point out that in terms of the fundraising assistant and our investment in new database software, I happen to have two fundraising professionals, development professionals who work, one for a hospital, one for a national organization, who are experts in that field. At this time, we feel like we want to invest in our ability to raise money. And that's why we're asking for the money. It's in the budget also to buy this new software and also for this assistant to just work on that database and help with the new. It will give us the ability to do more targeted mailings and fundraising. Hopefully it's our investment. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, and that is the intent of why that is in the budget.
and I thank you again for the substantive response. I guess I have just a couple of follow-up, so I just educate myself. It says whenever we're open to the public, one circulation desk clerk and one reference librarian are required to be in the building. So that's two people that are required to be out in
Yes.
front.
Public service, yes, dealing with the public.
Okay, so
And that is mostly when outside of the normal hours of 10 to 5. So it would be anytime after 5 o'clock. If we had evening hours, that's the case on Saturday, and that would be the case on Sunday if we were open.
that's
one-
required too.
Yes, a reference librarian and a circulation person.
But if I understood it correctly, generally it's staffed with 3 people,
No, 2,
but 2 full-time and then a part-time, which
no. At the circulation desk,
There's usually only
one
person.
full-time clerk, one full-time reference librarian.
and who else would be then?
In the building is all the support people, myself, the head of circulation from 10 to 5. But anytime outside of regular business hours, that's the minimum, yes. One full-time. Occasionally in the summer, we bring in somebody to work for 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday morning because it's very busy. That's the only time in the exception to that.
Okay. Okay, so
You may see somebody else sitting at the desk with them, but that's because they're doing some sort of project from the back, not required to be up front.
So the statistic I got from average unique patron checkouts per month is for 287. So that means there's over an average month, 287 checkouts. Transactions is a word.
It's only checkouts. It's
Yeah.
nothing, thank you.
Well, that's-
Yeah,
Well, the checkouts are that's what the main item that the people who are staffing the front desk are addressing.
just the person at the circulation desk, the reference librarian is dealing with people coming in that need computer help, that need technology help, have come in, they need help filling out government forms online. Just checkouts is just one tiny piece of the puzzle, one piece of the pie. And it's only checkouts. That's not people helping them to place holds for things that they want, showing them where things are near the desk, placing holds. That's the only one statistic is the checkouts. This is not easy to, and a lot of what that person is doing is not necessarily recorded because of confidentiality, and they're not writing down every single thing they do. Just happens to be that we were able to get close to that figure through the Westchester Library System. It's only from May to October, for example.
Yeah.
As I said, those people who are in charge of providing that information were at a conference last week. It was, I had to pull that together quickly.
Understood.
But my point is that that checkout figure, it's only a very small part of what that person does.
Okay. So, because I posed this question before, and I don't know if I got an answer to it either before, or I want to know what the board's position is as far as staggering hours. I thought I brought that up in the presentation. So one of the things that's of concern to me
Mhm.
is that based upon the current number of hours that have been, in existence, there's no opportunity for the vast majority of people in the town who work a full-time job to be able to benefit and utilize the library in person. Because it's never open before 10, it's never open after 6, it's not open on Sunday. So that's why I was suggesting the prospects of staggering the hours 1 or 2 days a week, meaning the sliding, so if it's 2 to 9, 12 to 8, 1 or 2 nights a week. So I asked that question, and I don't know what your position is as far as being in favor of that and what the board thinks about that.
Rich, if I may, she did point out that there's a survey that's currently open, not only for people who use the library, but people who don't use the library. And it's available on the website of the library. And one of the questions they asked, there were more than one question about the timing of the library being open and other services as well, not just for children and teens, but adults. So you can not only say which days you want to be open, you can also make suggestions about what kind of activities that you would like to have as well in there. Go to the library website and it's still open.
It will be open until November 30th.
Understood, and I appreciate that, and people should
So
encourage
there
the
have
board
been-
up, but I'm still trying to ascertain
Right.
what.
Rich, the board has not discussed it yet in full because we're waiting for the results of the survey because we want to know what the community wants.
So you're telling me that neither you nor the board have a position on it before seeing what the survey is?
No, we don't. I'm saying we're waiting to see what the community says. We want to see what the community wants.
And you're.
Sunday hours is a possibility in the survey, to evening hours, but also people for now, I don't want to speak to the entire survey because I haven't, we have about 234 responses so far. And I can see that even though it's not one of the possibilities, I can see some people saying, well, I have young children. I would like you to be open earlier. I like the early hours. We're trying to balance out the needs of the people that work full time with the people that have young children that want it to be open early and are used to it being open early. So the board has not made up its mind yet. We're open to everything. And we really want to have the data from the community to see what they want.
But that wouldn't change your budget in any way.
No, just
So.
that's what I'm saying. It's an opposite, it's a neutral type of thing by.
Right.
adjusting
I
it.
prefer not to do that personally. That doesn't mean that the board agrees with me or that we've discussed it in detail. I think people find it very confusing to have hours like that. And again, we have families and people with young children that prefer to come in the mornings.
Sure.
But we want to, but we want to also add, if we added it in the evening, it would just be 2 hours one evening. It doesn't add a lot to the total.
But sliding, so how do you address
Like
getting
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, early, Tuesday, Thursday, late? Is that kind of what you're saying?
as a possibility? What I'm getting at, and I'm not hearing an answer as far as what is the board's position or what is there by way of an opportunity to expand the use of the library to the vast majority of the community who may not be able to do so during the 40 to
Yes, I
43 hours
understand
in
that.
the course of the week.
And that's why we're doing the
That's what the
survey
survey's
to
for.
ask
So
the
we need to-
community.
Yeah.
Then the board will decide.
What are you expecting?
And also seeing how much money we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're past the deadline for our budget.
But it doesn't impact the budget.
No, it's well,
Well, whatever, as Angela, I'm sorry, what Andrea, almost called you Angela.
that's okay.
I have a step member named Angela. It's like, as you said, you're going to decide how much money you're going to give us and then we'll make a decision.
On how you're gonna spend it.
Exactly. I mean, some of the other factors are also whether if we open on Sundays, if we close on the Sundays during the summer. Do we close on, from Memorial Day or do we close from July 1st? There are lots of ways of balancing the hours and the budget, not just shifting the hours, but, doing things like that as well. Are we open for 3 hours on a Sunday or 4 hours on a Sunday? There are a lot of options, which I've provided to the board, and they would like to see what the community thinks about it.
Yeah, no, I'm, as you know, well aware of what goes into the process.
Okay,
Sure, I've
Well-
been on the library board for 6 years.
all right. Well, the board is considering all of the options. And after they have the data and see how much money we have in our budget for the year, then we can make a decision.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thanks, Cindy. All right. So I think we, if there are any other questions over the course of the next week or so, get them in, talk to the department heads. And we can, yeah, we can look at that,
That's my suggestion.
right? And we can always, you know, the flexibility with Microsoft Excel is that you can plug those numbers in and see what the impact is, right? The overall impact.
Well, now
to
my
the
only
tax rate.
concern is how much less surplus, that's my, now that I understand this process, how much less surplus are we going to need to make up the revenues? So that's it. This is my other number. This is the community enrichment line.
Yeah, so we can, yeah, well,
That's
that's
another-
good that you have all that stuff.
Well, I'm
Now we
glad
can, yeah.
But that, I think Rich was like, well, when do we get to say,
Mhm.
you know, or vote or have
Right.
an opinion as a group as to where we want you to cut things?
Mhm.
Because we can send you emails and say, listen, I want to cut X number of dollars from the library. I want to cut X number of
Right.
dollars from Parks and Rec. And then we show up on the 25th and nothing that I asked for was cut or nothing that Rich was asked for was addressed
Yeah.
or, you know, like, when are we going to be able to sit down and have a consensus as to where we want to cut and how much?
We could schedule another work session just before the meeting on the 25th.
But we could do it in the meeting too, if anybody has proposals and, you know, we could send them to us ahead of time, so we're sort of prepped for that we can discuss. And make those changes at the time and the resulting, you know, what we get is then what then is sent to the hearing.
But I'm just trying, again, the mechanism. So let's say over the next week, somebody has an idea as far as putting more in or cutting from something.
Mhm.
So what's the mechanism for that process?
Send it in to me, we'll review it, two of us can review it with the department head. And then we'll put it into the spreadsheet. And then when it comes time to, you know, for the public.
And then,
we'll have a-
what? So if two of us are
preliminary.
okay with it, that's gonna make the adjustment? Is that what
Well,
we're
it'll be
talking about?
summarized, just like I summarized to you guys last week, the adjustments that I made after meeting with a couple of folks. It'll be summarized in an email and we can,
My only fear is that if I make suggestions and you and I, you know, talk to the department head and we're gonna make those changes, what if Mary doesn't agree with the changes?
So why not wait? Why not
No.
take all the suggestions? Don't put them in the sheet. Put them in a separate sheet. Here's all the proposals that came in, you know, since you got what you have. We go through that sheet as the basis for the discussion next time. Andrea proposed this. What say ye? You know, we discuss,
I mean,
say
we-
yes or no. That change is made. So we go through that list. That way we have them isolated in one place.
We-
We don't
yeah,
kind of lose
we-
track of them because they've already gone into the spreadsheet and things like that. So I
Right,
would
no, that's
recommend
something
we-
to, but yeah, because we
It's
have,
that-
it's a little laborious but transparent process as far as what we're, you
yeah,
know, going through the numbers and going through the lineup. That's what the process is. And everybody should have an opportunity to,
So, yeah,
to
so does that
benefit-
sound okay then?
something to that effect. sounds
Okay.
like.
yeah.
And also the public has can see what it is too, as
Right.
far as you know, in real time, what we're going.
Right. And any adjustments that are made, you know, they're not, you know, we already have a tentative budget, right? So that's done, that's baked. Any adjustments will be made in the adjustment column that is prior to preliminary. So that's where you would see any changes.
No, totally get
Right.
that. That's the result of what
Do
Dan's talking
you,
about.
do you
the work.
expect,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
Tony, I would
Yeah.
recommend even the ones that you're making, put on that sheet from now on, just so.
Yeah, I did that in an email, but I could transpose that into a separate
yeah,
list. Yeah,
Don't modify this document, we'll do that
okay,
on site, we'll go
Right.
through all the proposals.
okay.
Yes, no, you'll make those changes
Right.
and that'll be presented.
And I mean, I wish we could have been, you know, further along in the process, but of course, we had a little fluctuation in controllers and.
I don't
and-
see
and
this
it's-
as being.
I think last year we were like end of November, we had already adopted the budget,
Yeah.
November 27th, so we're
It's a
a
normal,
week or so delayed. Yeah, but
not a big.
okay. Sounds good?
Yeah, so I guess
Yeah.
back to the close where I started, as far as the first thing is. Because knowing what on that whole list, Dan suggesting whatever our proposed items,
Mhm.
adjustments. We also should know what our goal is, and that all flows from what we're doing reference to the surplus.
Correct, and also the tax cap number. So last year we broke the tax cap, right? We were at 4.2. So if the board says, you know what, maybe we should be at 4%. Then the surplus becomes a
Comes down
lower
more.
number. Right?
Right, but all these things are correct, so, but we come to some kind of consensus or some kind of goal, or what you're
Yeah.
looking to do, and then we see if there's
Right.
consensus, and then we work towards it.
Yep.
I mean.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be all one way or all of another,
Right.
but a little bit of
So,
nipping away at this preliminary budget or proposed preliminary budget, a little bit of deciding how much we're all in consensus about if we need to break the tax cap, by how much are we willing to say that we're willing to go over the tax cap? And then when we get to that number, then we'll know, okay, how much we're gonna have to count, how much of
Yeah.
the surplus we're gonna use, as revenue, so to speak, to do it all. So I
Mhm.
think that's a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
so that we're not at 16% over where we wanna be. But I think that we do the town justice by first looking at the numbers and cutting first, and then going from there.
my goal, just so everyone's aware, is to be at the tax cap. I mean, we broke it last year. I'd like to be at the tax cap.
Yeah.
But we'll look at where else we can
Oh, but I'm
lower
saying-
the expenses and potentially increase revenue, and then lower the surplus.
But if we're doing that, if the surplus component is sound, then it seems like, to me, it's an opportunity to come in with a flat budget with no increase at all.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So that's.
Yes.
It's all good, and
Yeah.
I don't like breaking the tax cap, but as we've seen this past year, people actually saw what they were getting for their money. And the paving, the highway budget, and the other prominent thing is, increasing or improving our police department, with all the concerns that are going around town. And, it's those two things touch everybody in the community,
Mhm.
and that's where you get the most bang for your buck. So for me, even though I try to be fiscally conservative, that was a money well spent.
Right.
And I think, I'm all for using surplus if we've already reached a level where that's a prudent thing to do. At the same time, we want to recognize if by doing that, we're essentially capturing a hole in the budget, which will appear again next year.
That's correct.
Then we want to have a sense of what that is and.
But by using a surplus, you won't have a hole. So you've established your baseline for revenue and expense, and that's where you carry on to next year. Correct, Danny?
Essentially in the general fund right now.
Well, it's
Right.
in your general fund, but.
But if you spend it, then it's
saving.
gone.
It's net savings.
So barely touching there's enough, trust me.
No, I know there's.
Maybe you can get up so the
absolute
folks at
plenty.
home can hear.
That's not what my point was, if we're using 800,000 in surplus to patch the difference between revenues and expenses, and next year you're not gonna use $800,000 in surplus, that gap will then appear.
Is a
No,
risk.
it
That-
won't.
Okay, so.
It won't, because
No.
your revenue and expense carries over. That's when you go back to the spreadsheet, you're now basing your new budget for 2026 on that revenue and expense. So if you could stay flat, with the same revenue expense without considering budget surplus.
That makes no sense to me.
Well, the surplus is the difference between the revenue and expense, just in the way that the budgets were built. And year after year, it's come up as a surplus that has then just stayed in the general fund without exactly a
Sure,
home.
yeah, I get that.
So now next year, when you do your budget, you're not exactly saying, instead you could go in and say, okay, instead we're gonna make 800,000 more in revenue. Now that's where you might have a problem, because if you're saying you're gonna make that much in revenue, then you don't meet that, then you might have a budget deficit that year. And you're avoiding that this time by going into your unassigned fund balance that's already been built up by previous year surpluses.
That's the key word, unassigned. unassigned fund balance.
It's still in layman's terms, savings, right? And it's
Yes.
still taking where we have revenues, we have expenses, and oops, our revenues are not as much as our expenses, so we need some more money. We're taking it from our savings, right?
Right.
And if the next year, assuming revenues and expenses stay just the same, which will never happen, but suppose it stay the same, are you gonna take more out of your savings?
So I
Because
think this is where the visibility hasn't been great, in my opinion. I think each budget year to year has been looked at individually rather than an accumulative thing. So you should really look at your 5 years of results and say, I mean, 2020 was what it was, 21 was even a little weird, but if I look at 23, 24, or 22, 21, 22, and 23, the audited financials show surplus in all 3 of those years.
So if you're saying that we consistently budgeted, the surplus into it, and it's in there somewhere, and you expect that surplus, so it's not $800,000 worth of surplus, so.
No, that's all you're taking from it.
There's more.
There's more. Like, so if you, and I can show you the
Yeah,
numbers from
I was talking about,
yeah.
like, our surplus in a given year,
Mhm.
like we did better than we budgeted. There's a surplus.
Yeah, you could put that whole number in there if you want to, and then work with your budget like that, but that's a totally different approach than the town has ever had. So looking at last year's audited financials, I think the surplus was about $1 million or something, maybe 900,000.
Last year surplus was.
Last year, the general funds, or maybe it was 2 years ago. One year was like 1.5 and 1 year was like $1 million. So those are the numbers that are there.
So that's what I was saying, that there's, despite all the work that we do in our budget.
Right.
There's $1 million on it, or 900 or 800, whatever, on an annual basis.
Right.
That's in there.
Exactly.
So we expect that. All right, that's what I didn't understand.
Yes, and where a big part of that $800,000 plug is just from interest alone, that was really under budgeted year over year.
So the obvious question is like, and I don't think we're gonna be able to do that like in this budget session, but we're sort of backdooring it through the surplus thing. Is that we've got to dig in and see where those surpluses are coming from year to year.
Right.
And understand that just so we can budget better.
Exactly.
Right,
Okay.
and that we haven't done a good job.
We haven't done, no,
Yeah.
and that's a
So,
big job, I
yeah.
think.
That can be talked to
Yeah.
with the auditors when
That's
it
so-
makes.
Just about to ask
Yep.
that. We can address that with the auditor.
Yeah, so when I sit them down, I have a lot of questions from the audited financials for the past 2 years that I looked at, just, as far as like, where's their recommendation for, oh, you should maybe bring in less next year, like. They wanted to come in during the budget process, which maybe that's why they wanted to make sure that we were gonna make a move like this. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader.
I was very surprised that they wanted to come in this early, because usually they wait till
Yeah,
April.
so maybe it's the new guy, or maybe it's like,
Well, welcome
Yeah.
welcome to the job.
thank you. So don't worry, I'm gonna do all my due diligence with the auditors. I have to introduce myself to them, and I have a lot of questions because the town I was working in previously never had this situation. So it's a great one to be in. I'll say that again, but I just want to make sure we are approaching it as conservatively as everything's been handled up to this point to get Lewisboro in the great place that it is. And
Right, but the more we cut on the budget, the less we have to go.
yes,
Got it.
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just stop the share here. Okay. All right, so next we have, this is the purchase of the EV, electric vehicle Chevy Equinox for the building department, and an EV mower utilizing $50,000 nice SERTA grant. So again, Kerry did the work on this. And we knew there was going to be a shortfall. We weren't sure how much, but there was an $11,591 shortfall. After considering the nice SERTA rebate and the clean vehicle tax credit. So the motion here would be to authorize the use of funds. My recommendation would be, we have ARPA funds, which is something that we have to decide on before the end of the year, the allocation of the rest of the funds,
How much is it?
which we have about 145,000. Potentially more because some of what we allocated was not spent. Because Joel did a great job at minimizing the expense on generators, for example. So we have some extra money there and I have to sit down with him to see how much was left over from his allocation. But right now we have about 145,000 unallocated of ARPA.
So your proposal is to take 11 or 12 from the remaining.
I would say not to exceed, right, to get this vehicle and this mower and utilize the $50,000 grant that we are getting from NYSERDA.
Forward, if doing that, the question is, because it's a little short, so your recommendation is to take 11 or 12 from the ARPA.
Correct.
45 balance to pay the rock.
That's my recommendation, yes.
I'll make a motion.
Sure, I'll motion to utilize, let's say not to exceed encumber. Not more than $12,000 of ARPA funds for the, to cover the shortfall on the Chevy, on the NYSERDA.
The
purchase of
balance.
The NYSERDA, the balance.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's not a roll call, right?
It's not a roll call.
Done it.
That's because it's not, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next is a resolution authorizing the town to provide matching in-kind contributions equal to the cost of the senior van, which is $102,009 through salaries, insurance, gas, maintenance expenses, if we awarded the community development block grant for the purchase of the new van. So this is, and Barbara Mangione had a question about this. Actually, in the agenda packet, there is a spreadsheet that was included that shows what the matching in-kind contributions would be. So it is the total that we were required to match was $102.09. And Kerry did the research to get, and I'd like to thank Pam Veith and Nicole Caviola from Parks and Rec for helping with this. So they came up with what the matching in-kind expenses are that we would apply towards the this community development block grant, so we can proceed with the application. And this is based on.
And that's the, like, including like the lifetime contributions I've.
Correct.
That's how it adds up to that.
That's correct, right, Kerry? That's the lifetime. If you want to come up and this was actually, we received a letter on October 31st from Westchester County stating that we needed this information, along with some other, service history records. And they want minutes from the town board where we approved applying for the CDBG grant, and a town board resolution that'll come out at tonight's meeting on the town's match.
Right, and so the chart that was showing our in-kind contribution was part of the grant application. Over the course of the first 3 years that we would own the van, we would cover that 102,000 matching grant through expenses that we would be having anyway, things like maintaining the vehicle, the salaries for people who are involved with our senior program, the insurance that we pay for the vehicle for the town. So that money is already, we're not asking anyone to spend any extra money now.
Yeah.
The county just needs a resolution acknowledging this match for us to be able to get through the last hurdle of this grant application.
So basically, we're not coming up with $102,000
No.
a year.
No.
It's basically what we do already.
Mhm.
Spend.
Right, right. And it was already part of the original grant application. This is more just, they need a resolution confirming that, yes, we're aware that this chart will add up to the 102,000 over the course of 3 years.
So I move that we authorize the town to provide matching in-kind contributions equal to the cost of the senior van of do I put in the amount? Of $102,009 through
I don't think we need that detail. Yeah.
I don't think you need to be.
Yeah.
okay.
The key was
So-
in kind,
In
not
kind.
cash.
Kind, right.
Right.
Not asking to spend anything
Second.
extra.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Okay. New business. Next is, this is an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Southeast. Our highway superintendent wants to buy a truck that they're selling for $25,000. It's a great deal. So our attorney reviewed the IMA, the intermunicipal agreement, and all was okay, right, Craig?
Correct. I reviewed it with the town council for Southeast. They're going to consider it at their meeting Thursday.
So
Sweet, right.
Okay.
Where's the money coming from? What line? In what budget?
It's coming from their highway fund balance.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion?
Have to roll call that.
Oh, roll call, Rich.
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Tony, aye.
Mary Shaw, I.
Dan? Okay. Next is a resolution authorizing the map plan report for Lake Kitchewan Sewer District, utilizing New York City DEP funds provided by Westchester County. So this is similar to what we did for the Lake Kitchewan. It says sewer district, but it should be septic, sorry. Septic district. This is similar to what we did for the Wacabuck True Zone Twin Lakes Sewer District a couple weeks ago. So I'd like to go ahead and motion
We have money for that.
from the county, correct. In fact, the county, they had their Board of Legislators met on October 21st and have officially approved distribution of this money to us.
For formality purposes, just it should be accepting the proposal of Woodard and Curran to provide the NPR for the septic maintenance district at $71,000.
Hold on, is it, let me just verify that number. Is that the right number?
Yeah, there's 97 for the sewer and 71 for the maintenance, septic maintenance. But I see it's on 26 of your backup.
You're right, 71,000. Yep. Okay.
I
So-
moved.
So moved. Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
Discussion? All in favor?
No, roll call.
Oh, roll call again. Rich? Andrea?
Aye.
Tony, aye?
Mary Shaw, I.
Dan, aye.
Okay, next is a resolution for the villas at Vista Water and Sewer Services. So this is something that we, the planning board, as part of the site plan approval resolution, they did put in a requirement that says a condition that the applicant shall obtain written approval from the town of Lewisboro Town Board for potable water and sewer services. They already have, they already have access to potable water and sewer services. The application by Smith Ridge Associates was a change of use from commercial to residential. And so what they're going to be doing is using the existing services, but connecting them to these individual units. They're responsible for following the rules and regulations, which requires that they install meters per our spec, and provide the name of the owner that meter thanks to, before we can service or water or sewer can be used. There was a letter from the attorney for Smith Ridge Associates, Michael Siriano, who's here. And there was a copy of the resolution provided to the board as well. So I'd like to go ahead and motion that we
So what are we resolving to do?
we're resolving to approve, as requested by the planning board, access to potable water and sewer services.
Town attorney, help us out here. I thought this was not a determination that the town board makes, that it's something that's already in existence.
Yeah, this was on the proposed agenda last year about this time. And
November last year, right?
I think the supervisor sent a letter to the planning board chair saying it's a planning function. The design criteria for demand and the like is within your purview and not town boards, and the town board wouldn't be taking any more action. So
they sent it back to us anyway.
there's a condition in the final approval resolution that basically, I think the board has it. I don't want to paraphrase it incorrectly. Basically sends it back to the town board for water and sewer connections.
For potable water and sewer services.
Services. Okay.
Yeah.
But we're not determining that the water is potable. That's.
Well, that's been done already.
That's
That's if it
continued.
wasn't potable, the health department wouldn't allow folks to.
So what's the exact language of the resolution?
Yeah.
It says the applicant shall
Condition 6, yeah.
obtain written approval from the town of Lewisboro Town Board for potable water and sewer services. I think what it should have said is that the applicant will
So basically what we're saying is, go ahead and hook up as long as you follow the rules and regulations of the water district.
And sewer district. You do that.
Sewer
Sewer
district.
district.
Is any other,
It's like redundant.
is anyone else besides the applicant been asked to come to the town board for such approval? in your knowledge, in your history?
I don't
No,
know that.
because we never had any other, we never had any new
Oak Ridge
connections.
is, Oak Ridge is the only entity on the sewer district. The water district has Connet Valley, right? It has
Correct.
single family residences
Yep.
on it as well. So I don't know what the process has been. If what I would suggest is if the board is inclined that the town board deems the conditions set forth in condition number 6 of the conditional final approval resolution satisfied.
Right.
That works.
Okay.
Say that again?
I'll try and say condition a few more times. The town board deems condition number 6 in the conditional final approval resolution for Villas at Vista to be satisfied. And that's-
So moved.
Well,
You have questions?
So,
I do
so
have
do
questions.
do I have a second
Second.
discussion?
Yeah, just a question. Do you feel that that's going to map adequately to the planning board resolution and they won't find, oh, that's not enough and it'll get delayed for a couple months?
Yeah, I think that it would. There's not discretion on this board's end. When the applicant gets the approval, they go probably to Joel, okay, and they look to, they have to have a meter install, and presumably if you have to tap the actual supply, there's a permit, but that's done
Yeah,
at
they
the
have to provide the
departmental
name and
level.
address that's associated with that meter.
It's done at the
Name of the
departmental
Not
level.
very-
generally.
You think this resolution will satisfy the planning boards?
I think that it will, yes.
Okay.
what's potable
That's fine.
water as set forth in this resolution?
What's potable water? Water that you can drink.
It's in their resolution. It's not
So-
in our
So in other words, if someone decides, since the town board is making an affirmative representation that the water is potable, is whatever that means.
We're not. That's not my
The
resolution.
applicant shall obtain written approval from the town. The language shouldn't be in there. It's not necessary. This is totally within the scope of what the planning board
That's
does.
right.
And they should have given approval without this condition, and they shouldn't have sent it back to us. And we should send it back to them to do, which is squarely within the wheelhouse of what the planning board should be doing. And I know because I was on the planning board myself. And including and Mr. Siriano's letter to this board is talking about the issue of capacity, which is exactly correct and factually right, because determinations were made referable to other projects on the issue of capacity.
But if we
But the-
issue
but the
this
language-
resolution, we're not incurring any particular liability and it ends it and the applicant can move ahead. I really don't want to send something back to the planning board that gets, that means they have to have another month or two.
Well, the reason that delay is that this was passed on October 15th. There was communications immediately thereafter. Any delay is not, the delay is attributable to the fact that the planning board kicked it
Well, that
over here
doesn't
when they
help
should
the
have.
applicant, Rich.
Well,
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
what'll help the applicant, then they could have a
So-
special meeting, they could put it on the agenda,
Yeah.
it shouldn't delay anything.
But why
we
are
shouldn't-
we doing that? Just
Well,
so we can
we have,
punish the planning board?
Yeah, so.
We're not punishing the planning board.
But
The
the wording
planning-
of the resolution that we're passing does not say that we're declaring the water potable. It says what he said.
Connections.
And that will free this up and they can move forward. And I would.
I mean, one of the complaints that just if I can interject, I mean, we've been, several times your folks are saying that our processes take too long. And yes, this is something that the planning board should have not thrown back to us, but they did. But in order to not have the applicant have to go through this process again, I say we just move forward and it's a learning lesson for the
So
planning board
anytime-
for next time that they know.
So anytime in the future that the planning board has an issue that as far as making what they may perceive to be a difficult decision to make, that they have an escape hatch, they could forward it back to the town board. That in the long haul makes it potentially difficult and adds time and expense to applicants, because if the planning board has an issue that they don't want to squarely address, which is within what they're supposed to do, then it's creating in the long haul bad precedent and future projects to be set up exactly the same way. Hey, let's punt it to the town board because it's something sticky that we don't want to deal with. That's
Yeah, I think it
exactly
was-
what they're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing. This condition should not have been in the October 15th resolution at all.
It's a poor choice of words, I agree, but at this point,
Not a
I'd
poor
like
choice
to.
of words. It shouldn't have been in there as a condition.
Okay,
of
but
the
now-
approval.
now it
The-
is.
The planning board resolution of October 15th should have not have had it at all.
Got it. So now it is, I want to simplify the process. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright.
No, bad precedent.
Okay. Moving on. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a contract with Auctions International. That's the platform that we use for, or the entity that we use for auction off vehicles, been used by our police department, by our highway. And this is just a renewal of that agreement. There's a copy of it in the agenda packet.
I'll move. And I
Okay.
will second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
No, you can't.
Oh, sorry, because I'm signing. You're right.
You have to abstain.
And next is the new business item related to this Environmental Facilities Corp. That's the grant, the $6.875 million grant. I have to submit notice to them no later than November 15th to confirm the acceptance of the grant award and our intent to proceed with the project.
I move that we authorize the town supervisor to complete the paperwork and sign the enclosed form to the EFC, completing the grant in a timely fashion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain since I have to sign it. Okay. You're still here.
They want to make sure. You got that right.
All right. Okay, next we have public comment number 2 for the new business
Don't
items.
have to do approval of the point. Oh,
No, that's
sorry,
it. Yeah, so public anybody here would like to comment?
We can't comment on old business, right?
No, new business. Yeah.
Like that
technically.
goes.
But send us an email, send us an email.
You can,
If it's new business, yes, you can.
Was that the new business?
This was new business, yeah, that we just finished.
Business?
Yes. The EFC grant, yeah, approving, yeah.
I apologize, I was traveling home.
no, don't apologize. You thank us for our patience.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
I just actually had a couple of comments that I wanted.
Your name, Hamlet, 3 minutes.
My name is Allison Centenary.
Someone, or was it me? Hold on a second. How did that happen?
The papers.
No. Yeah, no, I'm muted.
Now
I'm
try.
muted. I'm muted, sorry.
Hi, does that work? My name is Allison Centenary. I live on Hoyt Street in the hamlet of South Salem. I'm also the TLPOA president. So I've been working
TLPA is,
Truesdale Lake Property Owners Association. It's the north side of Truesdale. And we also have a water system. So we have very bought in constituents, especially since their water is part of our association and something that we do as volunteers. I have been part of the sewer project since hearing about it from the East of Hudson study. And I recently, I feel compelled to speak because I recently walked the homes that would receive the sewer at Truesdale. And what was really unbelievably shocking to me was how many failed systems we currently have that are not repairable. It's not that they're failed and people aren't putting the money in. It's that they're below water table. It's that they're on quarter-acre properties and it's the slope. So they've begged people and no one will touch their systems. Also, the climate has changed. We're a dammed lake. The water table rises above what was initially intended and what was seen 120 years ago when the dam was put in. And that is affecting the sewer systems of these homes, or the septic systems of these homes. I just wanted to be able to speak about that and thank everybody for their help in improving the systems that aren't working right now, giving us options for systems that are inadequate and not fixable as we understand it. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else here? How about on the agenda?
Simone O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute.
I just wanted to say with all due deference to Mr. Siriano, a colleague, and his client. It doesn't matter to me at all that he stated you aren't representing that the water is potable. You are. It just blows my mind that Rich is the only one that sees that he has the, I was going to say balls, but whatever, the backbone enough to state that you should have sent it back to the planning board. Two wrongs don't make a right. The planning board was smarter than you tonight because they didn't want to be liable for this. You can bust through a corporation, and that's what you are. This is a board, and you can bust through a board, and you know it. What you just did puts the town at a liable risk, and I believe that with all my heart and my 35 years experience plus as an attorney. I'm highly, highly disappointed in what just took place. So it inconvenienced the applicant. So every time an applicant is inconvenienced, you're going to look the other way and set bad precedents. You have an attorney on the board who said, I've been on the planning board, send it back. But Tony, you fold like a cheap suit over and over again. You didn't even listen to him. And you said, okay, well, I just want to move this along. Let's, who is the second? Mary loves her seconds. I'm disappointed. I'm disgusted. And I think you put our town at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So this was neither under old business or new business, so it's kind of limbo business. And it really was something, Tony, you brought up during communications, which wasn't on the agenda. And I just wanted a little clarification because you mentioned that this sewer project for the Three Lakes is projected to cost about $40 million. And then you went through a list of different grants, which I was trying to write down, but you were kind of going a little too fast for me. And at first you alluded to the fact that the majority of the $40 million was covered by the grant. And then further on during that conversation, you alluded to the fact that about 8 million wasn't covered. So the numbers are a little jumbled from our end of us listening at home from Zoom, and I'm sure some people there. So my question is, where is that extra money coming from? And also, is there any kind of contingency for an inflation factor? If you remember, the Oak Ridge money was awarded to us, the $1.8 million was awarded to us in May of 2022. And here we are 2.5 years later, and the project is basically just getting underway and also is costing twice as much because of the delay in the money coming from the state and all the different organizations. So my concern is what's going to happen with the sewer project if all these grants don't come through for several years. Who's going to pay the differential? I also just wanted to kind of echo Simone's comments. Rich was on the planning board for many years. I attended a good handful of those meetings. He has a lot of experience, other than just being a lawyer. He has a lot of planning board experience, and I'm very disappointed. I hate to sound like your mother to any of you, but I'm very disappointed that 4 of you just kind of blew him off when he was trying to explain the dangers of just kind of setting these precedents where, oh, it shouldn't be here, but we're just going to do it for now. It shouldn't be done that way. Nothing should ever be handled that way, and it's really something you should look at. And just to wrap it up, I know it was kind of old business, but I'm fiscally conservative, so I think before we dip into our seems very high fund of excess money, that you do go line by line and look to see what can be cut before we have to take that route. I brought up 4 different line items, which totaled almost $110,000, asking for why there was such a big increase in them. So I'm hoping that you all sit down and go through all these line items, not just the one I mentioned. And perhaps maybe in the future we can use some of that fund balance, or as Dan said, that extra money to build what we need to house our departments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Carol Cernak, I'm asking you to unmute.
Carol?
Hi, it's Carol Cernak in South Salem, New York.
Yes.
I would like to echo what Simone and Barbara just said. I what is the process for getting this sewer district in place? I mean, are you gonna do eminent domain on people's property to run the pipes and the lines and all that kind of stuff? Like, don't these people have a say in what's gonna happen? And how it affects their property values? That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol. We're good.
That's it?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, next we have approval of claims. I'd like to go ahead and motion that we approve claims. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Rich?
Jim.
Okay, polling of the board. I'll start with Rich.
I don't have anything this evening.
Andrew.
I'd like to ask that the suggested changes to the social media policy be added to the agenda for the next town board meeting to be adopted and amend the current policy.
Yes.
No, I've spoken with Chris Forseti at length. He agrees that we received comments back that take into consideration those comments, that the amendment to the policy can still be made as I drafted the changes. So that's what I'm asking. So does it need to be put on for public hearing now?
And we're all.
Okay. Mary.
Yeah, the Thrive organization is going to be holding a Zoom meeting on November 20th for parents to help navigate the holiday with their teens. I will get the link and ask that the webmaster post it on the town website so people can know. Also looking forward to having people volunteer, member of perhaps a parent in the school district, be a representative of the town of Lewisboro and or a member of the community in the school district. Thrive is once again a coalition of the towns of Lewisboro, Tonbridge, and Bedford, and they provide counseling and educational events about preventing substance use and also addressing mental health issues for teenagers. And there's even talk of expanding it in the next few years of mental health for all of us together. I hope that you consider that, and it was an honor to bear witness to the Veterans Day celebration yesterday with the community.
Thanks, Mary. Dan?
Nothing much, just thanks to Annie for the work you're doing on the budget, and I'm looking forward to I've good feeling about where you're going with it, and you know, your ability to take it and put it in a better place for us. So that's great. And thanks, Carrie, also for all your work on pushing the NYSERDA grants over the finish line and getting that done. So.
Yeah, just to stick with that with the grants, I also like to thank as far as the EFC grant, there was a lot of work that went into that. And again, I thank Carrie for her work together with Jan Anderson, who helped tremendously. And you know, without this team effort, we wouldn't have done it. So we learned from last year what we needed to improve on, and we did, and we got more than we expected. So that's good. Now, and related to that project, so Carol Sarnak mentioned eminent domain, and no, there's going to be, like we stated earlier, there's going to be a district formation. So the folks that are would be part of that district get to vote as to whether or not they want to do this. So it is up to the people to make a decision. In terms of the funding,
Do you know the mechanism, how that, when that's created, is that majority vote and how does it
This is a
work?
separate issue.
There's
There's
two ways to do
two
it.
ways to do it. The first is by a petition of at least 50% of the owners of the assessed property within the proposed district boundaries. And the second is on the board's own motion, subject to a permissive. I don't know which one is going to be. And I don't know who owns the roads.
But isn't
in
that,
those districts.
yeah, isn't that separate issue from individual right of ways for as you're laying the pipe?
Right, so I don't know if the roads are, when those lots were carved out, if the lots were deeded to the center line of the road, then there may have to be conveyances or acquisition to lay the pipes in the traveled ways, which is typically where they go. But there may be other areas where you need to do it and you can seek a grant of, permanent easements or there's a public purpose to it. So eminent domain is always a potential player, but you try to avoid that, I think, as much as you can.
Yeah. And in terms of the funding, there's a couple questions on the funding. So the board passed the funding resolution for the $40 million project a few months back. That was one of the required. That's why we didn't get the New York State FC grant. It was denied last year because we didn't have a funding resolution. So we did that, and that spells out where each of the grants that we were expecting. So the only grant, as I stated earlier, that we're missing right now is a DEC grant for $10 million, which in reality, we don't need that full amount because the FC were generous and they gave us more than what we applied for. But we are waiting for that $10 million grant application to be finalized. So that's that piece. So this week, it was a very busy week, and we had Wally Golan, who turned 100. He's an 82, 83-year member of the South Salem Fire Department. Also a founding member of the Lewisboro Lions Club, which I'm part of. The club was founded in 1958. So we had a great birthday party for him at the South Salem Fire Department. So thank you to the fire department for hosting. Thanks to Waldy's family for the invitation. It was awesome. And then that was Saturday afternoon. Saturday night, the Vista Boy Scout troop actually had a turkey dinner. They camped out overnight at Onatru, and they prepared a turkey dinner to our vets. So I got invited to that as well. So it's an annual tradition, great dinner. And then they also went around delivering dinners to veterans in the community. So thank you to the Vista troop for doing that. And then we had the Veterans Day ceremony here. So thank you very much for the town board members who showed up. And it was a terrific event, well attended, and it's great. We have some new additions to our currently serving members of our armed forces, including my son AJ. He's up there now. So so it was a great event. Awesome turnout. And then thanks to the Lions Club for burgers that they grilled after the event, and Lily's Deli for the empanadas and the wraps that they provided. And
John
thank you. John Lemke did a tremendous job in putting this all together, as did Mark Wiebert with the currently serving members of our community, all John Jay graduates. So thank you both, John Lemke and Mark Wiebert.
Children's Community Club.
Children's Community Club, yes, that's the other one. So after the dinner at Onatru, they called me. They said, "Can you open up the townhouse so we can drop off the goodie bags that they were going to give out to the kids that yesterday?" So I was here Saturday night helping them unload. So it was a nice day.
The goodie bags are for the veterans.
They're for the veterans. Yes. So, and I got to deliver. They asked, they were shorthanded, so they asked if I could deliver some of them to Goldensbridge, where I live. So I did that after the ceremony yesterday. So it was a great day, great weekend to honor our vets and Wally Golan, who's also a vet, World War II vet. So lots of good stories from Wally. Back in his day, landing in Normandy and going into France and Germany, battle with the Bulge. Yes. Also for the South Salem Fire Department, they set up a Toys for Tots. Actually, we have, let me see.
It's also one in Vista Firehouse.
Yeah, it's Vista Firehouse, and then we have the U.S. Marine Corps. Is this one related to I think it's all South. That's what so it's the South Salem Fire Department, in partnership with the U.S. Marine Corps. They're collecting toys for tots, and there's a box back there. So thank you for doing this, and I think that's all I had. Let me just check. Yeah, that's it. All right, next we have announcements. So we have a meeting the next town board meeting is November 25th at 7:30 PM here at the townhouse. Right now, there's no meeting scheduled for December 23rd. But we will have one on December 16th. The December 23rd is a backup in case we do need to meet for any reason, but right now, no meeting on the 23rd. So
December 16th is for if we don't. Huh?
December 16th
If
is
the
our town
budget
board
isn't
meeting.
Right.
It's in lieu of the 23rd. We're having a meeting on the 16th.
What I'm saying is if we pass it at the time of the hearing. Then we don't need that meeting, hopefully. Right.
Depends on what comes up. Right, so we may have some agenda items already.
On the 23rd, so instead we're having on the 16th,
Right,
unrelated to the budget.
okay, so next, I'd like to motion, I'm going to executive session for personnel and real estate issue.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much for coming out.